Peter, who's an amazing developer and engineer, reached out, and we just had these conversations about like what is the kind of information we have and how do we make sense of it, because I was doing everything sort of on a Google sheet for a long time, and trying to map literally on Google Maps, like triangulate things. And Peter and I had a couple, like, a few hours long meetings where we just sort of brainstormed about what would be really helpful.
So yeah, the Slack bot really came out of, after being on that first call, and a bunch of ideas were thrown out there in terms of dispatchers and how to have volunteers connected with requests that are coming in.
And then he went and used his brilliant brain to create this bot that allows us to take a lot of the administrative work between receiving a request from a neighbor who has something that they need help with and our community of people who are willing to help support.
Having the tech community behind me here in Astoria, and knowing all the skills that we have out here and people who are willing to volunteer and put time into it, put out a call in our Slack, which the Astoria tech community also has a Slack. Put out a call there, and a bunch of people got together. One of our volunteers, Kyle, he actually had recently already been working on a Slack bot, so he began to repurpose that. He put a bunch of time into it, and a bunch of us were figuring out how to connect his Slack bot with the right services. We had that crunch week early on, much like a startup, and basically by the end of 1 week of many late night hours from many volunteers, we ended up having a functional Slack bot.
Magic! Thank the flippin' stars. Our tech team is so extraordinary. The hours of work it would take that occur in just seconds is so powerful. We can focus on public facing, reaching out to our neighbors and having these wonderful personal connections rather than digging through Excel sheets.
The bot is essentially just, it's just sitting on a server, checking a Airtable database. And, anytime a request comes in, whether that's, a dispatcher, manually inputting a request from the phone or from email, or someone who goes to the site and fills out the form on the site, a request comes into the bot, and the bot is constantly scanning and looking at that sheet and saying, hey, once a new request comes in, it sees it and says, it sees the request that is, what is being requested, what assistance is needed. It looks at the address that the request is coming from, and it then goes over to the volunteer database and says, and makes a query that's looking for, volunteers that are close to this requester and that can handle this request that they submitted.
I might hold the honor of being the person to have broken it the most. So my apologies to the tech team. They created this amazing automated bot that really does a lot of work for us by pulling in information on when a request comes in, which neighbors are the closest who have a lot of the needs. Or who can meet a lot of the needs that have been established.
And what took me anywhere from 2 to 25 or 35 minutes of sort of mapping things is now done in 15 seconds with the bot. And so dispatchers can really focus on making that community connection instead of spending a lot of time looking through a map and typing in addresses to Google Maps and whatnot.